Alrighty, and we are recording.
All right, Craig, so we had already talked about the plan for vocabulary, and I've already observed you in your classroom, and you have really told me very much so that, you feel very, that your time is really constricted.
Right.
It's very difficult for you to introduce vocabulary and spend so much time on it because you have such a great deal of content. I'm here to tell you today, or to show you today, some of the reasons why building academic vocabulary at the beginning of a unit will probably save you time in the long run, and that explicit instruction of vocabulary is really key for your kids to kind of gain an understanding of how words work, and also to give you some strategies so that your kids eventually will be able to develop the strategies on their own, and you'll in essence eventually be spending less time on vocabulary, because they'll get so used to deconstructing these words and learning this academic vocabulary that those kinds of lessons will go a little faster, and they'll be able to attain that content in depth.
That would be great, especially now that middle school time is of the essence. If you can help me get my instruction down a little bit quicker in terms of having them being more associated with the lesson and breaking down words quicker, that would help me in the long run.
Yeah. And one of the things that I wanted to share with you, and I don't know if you know this, people who are in literature and in English language arts do know this, that by the time a child finishes third grade, they really need to be on grade level with reading. If they're not, they are very much behind the 8 ball.
I did not know that, wow.
They, the problem is like they have a very, very slim chance of getting back on grade level as they rise,
right,
because they're learning to read K through 3,
okay,
and they're reading to learn 4 and up,
okay,
and their academic vocabulary gets more and more difficult. If they can't read and they don't understand words and they don't understand how words work, they're just going to be more and more behind. So that 4th grader who's a little bit below grade level, by the time we get them in 6th grade, they're very much below.
It's a critical point for them.
Yeah, they can't catch up. There's no catching up.
I mean, I found that to be evident too, from coming down from high school level to middle school. I mean, those students that really enter 6th grade and really struggle with their literacy, I mean, it shows like in terms of them having further difficulties to comprehend different topics and materials.
Okay, so I wanted to show you some information, some research, rather from Robert Marzano, who created the 6-step process for building academic vocabulary, which is touted all over the place. I mean, anytime you look up vocabulary instruction or explicit vocabulary instruction, direct vocabulary instruction, it's him.
Goes back to him?
He goes back to him.
Okay.
He really uses, he pulls out all the stops here. The main thing though, and the lesson plan that I have that I wanted to share with you also has this in it. The main thing though is, what you have to determine before you begin your next unit is what is the key academic vocabulary needed in the unit, and list your words. You can't really choose every single word. You really have to say, what do these kids really need for this particular unit of study?
Okay.
And then go with that. And one of the first things that Marzano says is the teacher, so it's explicitly coming from you, a description, explanation, example of the term. And you can do that in many ways. You can do that by providing context. You can do it by introducing direct experiences, using a video as a stimulus. I have that no, actually it's not in this lesson. I'm going to show you a different lesson later on, where there were some videos that you can use to show, what was it that I looked up? It was to show, what are they called? Cordilleros in South America. There were videos on those.
Really? So to associate with the term?
Yes. So it was, and they're only like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
They're 2-minute videos.
That's what you have to find.
So they can see, that visual. They really need
They need it quick. I would agree with that.
Yes. So that's one thing. The second thing is that the linguistic, they need to relate to the term in their own words. So they have to restate, they have to explain, they have to give an example. They could discuss it with a partner, they could report it in a notebook or a journal, but they have to work with those terms. They can't just write the word and write the definition. It has to really come from them, or from something that you have provided. You're providing them with information on it, but they have to make it their own at some point. And I'm going to show you that in a little bit.
Can I ask you real quick, is there a limit on like their own words? Like, do you want them to get to the crux of like?
I think that they have to put it in very user-friendly terms.
Ah.
So yes,
Okay.
I'm going to say there's a limit, but even though I don't like that word, but the limit is really a personal thing. It's what is going to make me remember this word.
Okay.
So that's sort of the limit.
Gotcha.
Okay. Then the third thing is the non-linguistic representation. If you manipulate the words, if you're modeling, you're letting them manipulate, they're playing games with the words, they're using things like Wordle, or they're doing like a kind of like a word sort or something, or they're drawing a picture of it, or they're thinking about what it reminds them of,
Okay.
a symbol, a graphic, something, they'll learn better. It's kind of like the video, that visual.
Yeah.
Let me make a visual connection.
Gotcha. It's the connection.
Yeah, and then the next step is for you to engage them in periodic activities that just keep reinforcing the knowledge of the word, the prefixes, the suffixes. As you say the term, I mean, this is what we do in our class. Oh, remember that word? We saw that in, whatever. Oh,
Right.
Friendship. What's the base word of friendship? It's friends. So what do you know that this is about?
Right.
That kind of always talking about the word, deconstructing it, comparing it,
Breaking.
breaking it down, using synonyms, using antonyms, whatever you can.
Right.
The fifth step is to have them work with each other. Think, pair, share, compare their descriptions of the term, describe their pictures to each other. Just work with each other so that they're getting ideas.
I like
from
think, pair, share.
from somewhere else. Yeah, there's some information that I want to share with you on that.
Okay, perfect.
And then step 6 is periodically play games that allow them to work with the
That's
terms.
the part that they would love.
Which is, the part that they absolutely love. And we all know that there's a lot of research out there that supports using games
Oh,
in
sure.
the classroom.
Stimulus,
Yes,
everything else.
yes, and
Right.
even Kathy did her thesis. Remember when she told
Oh,
us she did
yeah,
her
that's
thesis
right.
on
That's
using
absolutely
games
true.
and that. Okay, so now let me just show you. This is all the background. Let me just give you a quick and dirty. This is a lesson that I put together on your subject area.
Yep.
On the history of Arabia and Iraq.
Okay.
Okay, word wall, that's the print-rich environment. Okay, and we've discussed that before, and it's not limited to ELA. So a print-rich environment, if you have a word wall, even if you have the word wall on your projector, and you project it every time you're working with this lesson, it's there.
Okay.
It's there for them to see. So I've chosen some words that I thought would be very important for them, like monotheism.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that they need, dictator they need.
Yeah, it's too,
Right.
real quick, it's interesting because we spend a whole unit on religion and we discuss mono versus polytheism.
Yeah, there you go. So now you have mono and poly, which are your roots
Yep.
of those words.
Yep.
So again, now we're getting into the English again, but it's literacy,
cool.
but it's content literacy.
No, I
So,
completely agree.
yeah. So one of the things is, now some of this, I understand, you only have one class, one period. I have a double block. I can do a lot more in my block than you can do in your one period. But if you were to have unlimited time, you could do this as is. You could pick and choose,
Okay.
from this, particularly the very beginning. The beginning starts with what we call a sponge activity, just to get them involved with the word. And my suggestion would be to just do a Wordle, when they type the words, and then it manipulates it. So they can do, a Wordle
Gotcha.
to manipulate the words, so that's a visual for them.
Okay.
And then they can do a little gallery walk where they can, if they're doing the Wordle on their Chromebooks, you could just line up the Chromebooks and everybody could just kind of walk and look at
Alright.
everybody else's Wordle that they created.
Gotcha.
Okay, and then your instruction will really begin, because you'll be directing them to look at the list of the words on the word wall, whether it's projected or it's written or whatever, and then you'll project a 2-column word wall chart, and this is where it comes in, where the direct and the explicit definitions come in.
Okay.
You're actually giving them the dictionary definition. It's a 3-column chart. It's a 3-column chart. The term, the dictionary definition, and then whole class, your instruction here is the user-friendly definition. So you would solicit from them, okay, here is the definition of minority. How would you put that definition? You have it up there, you're reading it to them, and then you're saying to them, how would you put it in your own words?
Okay.
How would you write this? Do you
Use
have a
your own-
tissue?
I do. Terribly sorry.
I know,
Our students
I know.
do this to us all the time.
We're all dying here with these colds and
Yes.
our
Some,
voices.
some audio evidence of this.
I know, it's awful. It's awful.
All right.
Okay,
I
so
apologize.
that's the user-friendly definition part.
Okay.
And that's where, when you said, is there a limit, you really can't limit it because it's up to them to come up with something. And then you would all agree on what it is. Now, what they write in their notebooks could be a little bit different from what you're putting on the wall
Okay.
or on the chart, because they have to live with it. It has to be theirs.
Right,
You
but
know,
I
they
do
have
like
to
that
own it.
because it adds in their own interpretation of it, and then again, they make that connection to the word even
Yeah.
further, where they'll hopefully recall it down the road.
Yeah,
You
and it's something, I'm gonna remember this because
Right.
I came up with this,
Yep.
okay? And then you would go into the text, okay? You review the sections of the text that have the words,
Okay.
in it, okay? And then you would, and that only takes like 2 minutes, okay? These 2 pages, you're going to find on these 2 pages these words.
Mhm.
And there's several of these, not all of them. And then in groups, you would have the kids skim the text,
Okay.
read the context clues surrounding the highlighted terms, okay? Remind them that they're only concentrating on 4 of the 7 words, or how many of them, okay, due to time limitations.
Gotcha.
And then they would choose from the word wall or the text the definitions that best support their understanding of the key terms, okay? And then they would start to apply their knowledge. Applying their knowledge is where they start constructing a 4-square chart, or if you like the semantic map, you had said that you've done that before when Allie was in your room.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, where you have the word, you have a picture, related words, they use it in a sentence, they define it in their own words, they give synonyms or examples, they have antonyms or non-examples.
Nice.
Or,
Okay.
if you wanna do it more simply, definition, sentence, picture, related terms,
Okay.
word in here. And they can do this even in their notebooks. Or you can have them do it on their Chromebooks if you give them a template.
Right.
Candace and I have done that before, where we've done a template for them in Sheets,
Okay.
not in Sheets, in
Talks.
Google, presentation?
Presentation.
Presentation.
Okay.
In presentation, where you do a template and they just fill it in.
Oh.
Or some kids wanna do it, manually.
Yeah.
It all depends on the kid. But this, again, is that continuing to work with it, and then what it does is, if you do a semantic map, you can do this as a chart where you can have the kids volunteer to take part of the word. Like, let's say you have 4 words. You could have, there's 6, that's 6 times 4, that's 24 kids.
Right.
That's your class. Every kid has a job
To do.
to
I
do
got it.
on the chart.
I like that.
So every kid has to do something, and you can have them kind of rotate,
Right.
okay? And then they share out, and then at the end of the lesson, you summarize, you go over it, you make sure that they know the key terms. Now, because they're working with the text, while they're doing all of this, they had to skim the text, they have to look for the context clues, they have to look for, some reminder of the definition.
Mhm.
And you've already given them the definition, they've already agreed on the definition. Now they're looking at the text and they're seeing the words in context. You can assign those 2 pages for homework.
Okay.
They read those 2 pages. The next day, you don't have to read it with them. They've already read.
That much
And
effort.
they've already understood it
Right.
because you've taught it, basically, because they've spent time with that text already.
Oh,
The
that's
day
awesome.
before. So your reading is almost more, rather than reading in class, you're working with them on their vocabulary in
Okay.
class, and they're gonna be familiar with the text by the time they go home.
That's awesome.
And then
Because
the next day,
you use it in different contexts and be able to read it and use textual evidence in terms
Yep.
of that's awesome. That is
Yep.
great.
Yep.
Because that would really help you kind of cut some corners in just
Yes.
the sense of trying to accomplish what you're supposed to teach within your curriculum,
Yeah.
and getting to your objective and everything else within
Yeah.
in between. So that's awesome.
but it's ironic, because on a level, it is cutting corners. But it's not.
It's not. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because it really is spending a lot of time on the upfront, which will just make it more automatic for them to understand what the context is all about.
I was gonna
because the
say.
vocabulary is strong.
Yeah, it's enhancing their skills for like later grade
Yes,
levels, you know what I mean?
absolutely,
Making them
yeah.
stronger students.
And that's the independent vocabulary strategies,
Check that
because then they're gonna, that's what it will evolve into.
No, that's awesome. And you know, honestly, in all, seriously, specifically in social studies, we have terms which we do 5